Hezbollah says its media chief has been killed after an Israeli airstrike in the center of the capital, Beirut. Mohammed Afif was one of the few remaining public faces of the group whose leadership has been wiped out in a series of Israeli attacks.
Mohammed Afif, one of the founding generation of Hezbollah in 1980s, and he was very close to Abbas Musawi, who was the first Secretary General of the Hezbollah, who was assassinated in 1992 by Israel. Then he was close also to Hassan Nasrallah, who was assassinated also by Israel. So he was the face, the public face of the Hezbollah, who was like giving press conferences. So Israel military said Mohammed Afif, who was the chief propagandist for the Hezbollah, he was involved in activities against the state of Israel, so they need to get him out. But there is other people were killed when the airstrike, hit multi-story buildings, so these other people were killed. So it's a setback for Hezbollah.
Media outlets, including the global international media outlets, cannot dare the Israeli censorship, or at least address the Israeli enemy and tell them openly that you are wreaking destruction, killing innocent civilians, killing unarmed, defenseless, innocent civilians. Those media outlets cannot dare to the Israeli military censorship, who are not only launching a malicious campaign against us, yet laying a tight lid on their losses on the field following the successful military operations by resistance. Apart from some shy statement of condemnation, the whole world is turning a blind eye to the crimes perpetrated by the Zionist Israeli enemy. Even their statement in the middle of the United Nations hall and before the eyes of all the members who did not even move a finger. Have we forgotten that a number of the United Nations personnel were killed under the banner of the United Nations in the Qana massacre in 1996? It is not the United Nations or the international law that will deter the enemy. It is the resistance. We have been reiterating that targeting Tel Aviv is nothing but the tip of the iceberg. What happened in Haifa, Nahariya, and Zafar over the past few days prove that we are still at the beginning. And to the enemy, I say, you have seen nothing but the tip of the iceberg. Fourth, on the battlefield, namely on the southern part of the fighting front, and based on our firm faith in our resistance fighters, I assure you that the resistance movements and fighters are well and fine. And I tell you verbatim, without any improvisation, the resistance is fine, maintaining the right to exercise what it can, at what time, according to the circumstances on the battlefield. Our strategic reservoir is fine. Thousands of martyrs, suicidal resistance fighters are lined up, ready and prepared to defend our homeland, prepared to fight in sacrifice for all our sacrifice to the Lebanese. As we speak, the enemy is not able to advance, with the exception of very few cases. Their tanks are still stationed behind the lines. And if you have heard, and this message is to you, the media representative, and to the resistance fighters, if you heard or seen some of the enemy soldiers in one village or another, or an old, outdated picture of them in one of the tunnels, do not falter, simply because we know what we are doing. The resistance movement is maintaining all its capabilities and fighting with flexibilities according to the circumstances as they unfold on the battlefield. Continue to set up ambushes and move from offensive to the defensive as the enemy started to slowly and gradually admit their losses. As a result, the enemy is now reconsidering and recalculating their moves on the battlefield. However, I would like to convey the message given to me by a very senior command on the forefront. Our resistance fighters refuse to retreat from the positions considered by the resistance leadership as the falling points. Yet our fighters refuse to retreat simply because they have a firm conviction that they must continue to fight in defense of their people and homeland. The Israeli even are targeting the Al-Dahya with bombs, ticking bombs, under the pretext that these are weapon depots. Above all, they impede and deny the civil defense and paramedics access to the areas, as the Israelis continue to bombard and target paramedics and ambulance, with the collusion of the United States and the malicious role played by the American ambassador. The United States is held liable, together with the American ambassador, for this massacre and the destruction suffered by the residential homes, the killings, and above all, the targeting of paramedics. It is not only a crime against humanity, but also it is a war crime. But who is to hold the Americans liable? The aggression on the beloved Beirut of yesterday is nothing but a series of the condemned crimes of the enemy, as a result of which many of the civilians were killed under the false allegations and untrue pretext. The aggression on the United Nations forces, premises and personnel in the south is an act that is duly condemned. Yet we question the role of the United States and the United Nations and the international community. Our country is reeling under Israeli aggression, yet it is regretful to see some Lebanese media outlets reporting the Israeli story without vetting, adopting the Israeli rhetoric without due auditing, reporting and circulating, some of them even carrying the threats and statements made by the Israeli Chief of Staff, and even carrying the statements of the Israeli occupation forces live on air, even sometimes with translation that can per se carry out a psychological warfare, and not only that, but also carry a misleading, malicious campaign against the resistance movement, the Lebanese people and their allies. And above all, they continue to instigate the people against the resistance movement. Again, regretfully, very few media outlets are adopting these practices. This is shameful. Yet the government is not moving a finger. The Information and Media Ministry is not even taking any action. Simply, the same applies to the National Media Council. The excuse is always that the state is not incapable, yet the excuse is it is all called freedom of expression. What freedom of expression? Those who are called, falsely called, media activists to post certain names of towns and villages and certain buildings, stating that these are home to resistance leaders. Is it possible to see posts on the social media saying that these towns are home to weapons? This is a direct instigation against the resistance. Is it freedom of expression to incite the enemy against hospitals, civil defense and paramedics? This intentional preemptive instigation act was taken as an excuse for bombing hospitals like that of the Baptists. Where is the justice minister? Where is the chief prosecutor? Where is the cybercrime bureau? Unfortunately, all are absent. No one is acting. Lebanese media representatives and those who can be called as activists on the social platform, and how the Lebanese media platform is totally open and prone to the malicious Israeli campaigns in the absence of the relevant regulations, or at least the implementation of these regulations on the media landscape in the Lebanon. At the same time, I seize the opportunity to thank all the media representatives operating in the South, conveying the message and telling the story objectively in the South. I also commend the performance of a number of foreign and Arab journalists who are operating among us, who are paying a heavy price, yet sharing the responsibility with us. At the same time, telling the story of resistance and fortitude. I wouldn't miss this opportunity to draw a comparison between Israel's hegemony and malicious attack on the media landscape. Yet, these